So in our last video, we came out and said that the Los Angeles Lakers were engaged in a means to acquire either DeMar DeRozan or Buddy Hield. And man, in that 1.5 hours that I didn't get you guys any content at all whatsoever, so much stuff just went down and it's gonna probably melt your brain. So before we get to the content, I am live streaming the NBA draft in its entirety right now on my Laced Up podcast. A link to that's in the description down below or in the end screen. We're giving away a PlayStation 5 to a subscriber that turns on our notifications on that channel when we get to 40,000 subscribers. If you want to see me going off like a madman because the Lakers are going off currently, then make sure you follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Now that we get all that out of the way, cue the intro. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? So in our last video, we mentioned how the Los Angeles Lakers were doing whatever it takes to get rid of Kyle Kuzma. And initially, there weren't many takers for Kyle Kuzma, but wow, do we have a ton of news for you guys pertaining to multiple trades that are on the horizon. So let me walk you through everything. Originally, if the Los Angeles Lakers wanted to trade for Buddy Hield or if they wanted to trade for DeMar DeRozan, it was all going to be contingent upon Montrezl Harrell opting into his $9.8 million player option. And I'm not gonna lie, as a Laker fan, I do think it's a little sus if he does do that, but we got information from Adrian Wojnarowski about 20 minutes ago from when I'm making this video that Montrezl Harrell is actually opting into his $9.7 million player option. Woj continued to say that with Montrezl Harrell opting in, the Los Angeles Lakers are able to move toward completing a deal to acquire Kings guard Buddy Hield for forward Kyle Kuzma and Montrezl Harrell. Now, as time progressed forward, it seemed more and more likely that the Lakers had their sights on Buddy Hield, and as time went on, that's what was presumed. Until Shams Charania came and decided, hey, you know what I'm gonna do right now? I am going to melt the internet. So Shams Charania comes out and says, this just in, the Los Angeles Lakers and Washington Wizards are engaged on a trade that would send Russell Westbrook to the Los Angeles Lakers. Sources tell The Athletic and the Stadium. Westbrook wants a move elsewhere and the Lakers are his preferred destination, sources said. Because the trade package that I thought the Los Angeles Lakers would give to the Sacramento Kings for Buddy Hield is actually the trade package that they're giving the Washington Wizards for Russell Westbrook. So according to Shams Charania, the Los Angeles Lakers and Washington Wizards are discussing a trade that would send Kyle Kuzma, Montrezl Harrell, and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope for Russell Westbrook. And here's the crazy part. There hasn't been really any discussions in regards to the number 22 pick in the NBA draft, but that could potentially be in play as well. Everybody's favorite source, Sham Daddy Charania, came out and said that the Los Angeles Lakers and Wizards are in serious talks on a Russell Westbrook trade to LA. Sources tell The Athletic and Stadium, Westbrook has become the Lakers' primary focus. He would give them a dynamic playmaker alongside LeBron James and Anthony Davis. And I think the one thing that everybody seems to be overlooking at this point is if Russell Westbrook gets traded, that means Bradley Beal is going to demand a trade as well today. And if he happens to demand a trade right before the NBA draft, we could potentially see a scenario where, in my opinion, and this is my speculative play, the Golden State Warriors step in, offer picks 7 and 14, maybe James Wiseman, maybe Kelly Oubre, maybe in addition to Andrew Wiggins, in order to make the salary caps work, in order to give the Washington Wizards 2 draft picks in this year's NBA draft lottery, and a little bit of a heads up so they could start their rebuild on the right foot. Now, currently the favorites to go after Bradley Beal is the Boston Celtics and, of course, the Golden State Warriors. And at the time that I'm making this video, Bradley Beal didn't come out and demand a trade, but he did say in the weeks leading up to this situation that he would demand a trade if Russell Westbrook was to be moved, and that makes a lot of sense because at this point his contract is set to expire after this year should he decide to opt out of his option, and there are plenty contenders that would happily trade for him. So when I asked you guys on Twitter, do you think Russell Westbrook is enough to help the Lakers win a championship? It seems like you guys are 50-50 on the situation, more or less, obviously one side a little bit over the other. I do have concerns in regards to Russell Westbrook potentially becoming a Laker, one being that the Lakers would be extremely top heavy because this is a man on a supermax contract. Two, LeBron James and Russell Westbrook are extremely ball dominant and need the ball in their hands in order to really succeed. Three, the Los Angeles Lakers were one of the worst perimeter shooting teams in the NBA this past season. So I don't know if adding Russell Westbrook would really help with that, because you're talking about a guy that shot 31.5% from three last year and 31% from three throughout his career, but he's not that far removed from his age 31 season where he shot 26% from three, and he's 2 years removed from a season where he shot 29% from three for the OKC Thunder. So on one hand, I do think this is a player that could take quite a load off of LeBron James, but at the same time, I'm really unsure whether or not this is something the Los Angeles Lakers need. Now, this is where the scenario gets extremely interesting, because do you remember when I said that earlier on, Bradley Beal said he was really strongly considering demanding a trade about a week ago? And a few days ago, he said he might demand a trade if Russell Westbrook gets traded. Well, currently, there hasn't been a trade demand at the time that I'm making this video, although on Twitter, I am very, very firm in my expectation of Bradley Beal coming out and demanding a trade. But get this is where it gets really weird. Adrian Wojnarowski tweeted out that this is a trade Washington wants to make with Bradley Beal in mind, creating some salary cap flexibility for the future to add talent around him. The idea of returning to his Los Angeles roots has always been appealing to Russell Westbrook. And that makes a lot of sense to me. Russell Westbrook, of course, went to my alma mater of UCLA, but in this scenario, what the Washington Wizards are saying here is that they made this trade so they could get out of Russell Westbrook's contract so they could potentially pursue some free agent or another star player to put next to Bradley Beal. And I don't mean any disrespect to Bradley Beal, because LeBron James really had to endure this earlier on in his career, despite being the best player in the NBA and one of the most transcendent players we've ever seen. But nobody wants to, and no offense to Washington, it's a beautiful place, but nobody wants to go to Washington to team up with Bradley Beal. He's not going to be attracting any free agents. And even if he was to attract any free agents, it's not like there's a deep free agency class this year. The top players are players like Kyle Lowry, who's expecting almost $100 million, who is being linked to the New Orleans Pelicans, by the way. And of course, players like DeMar DeRozan or maybe Andre Drummond. And not to say that those are bad players, but it's a far cry from the 2019 free agency class that included players like Kawhi Leonard, LeBron James, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, and so on and so forth. And even if it was a deep free agency class, I really don't think anyone would go to Washington to play with Beal. So I feel like the Wizards may be saying this just because they want to get a better offer for Beal, maybe get someone to overpay for Beal in a trade for him. So at the time I'm dropping this video, the latest update from Adrian Wojnarowski is the fact that the Los Angeles Lakers and the Washington Wizards are just discussing draft picks and draft compensation. I'm assuming it has a lot to do with the number 22 pick in order for this trade to go down, but more or less this trade is near completion. The reason I'm making this video and dropping it before the trade's actually been finalized is mainly because, well, I'm live right now. So if you guys want to come by on the Laced Up podcast, I am doing my yearly NBA draft live stream, and you could see me scream like a little girl once the Los Angeles Lakers officially make this trade. If you enjoy the content, make sure you leave a like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications, because I'm bringing you daily NBA content, sometimes even multiple times. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike. I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.